Hola Barcelona, hola IMX. Sounds like Eurovision actually, but you're ITV, huh? Anyway, I'll be talking to you about authoring interactive fictional stories in object-based media, reporting research carried out in digital creativity labs at York between 2016 and 2018. I am Marian Ursu. I lead the research in object-based media in the labs. Davy Smith was the researcher in charge of this project. Shauna Concannon of user experience evaluation, John Gray software development, and Jonathan Hook, a key member of the object-based media research. The aim of my presentation is to contextualize the paper, not to summarize it, although I'll provide a summary of results right at the end of the presentation. Our take on interactive fictional narratives. They are video-driven and they are authored. And the overriding research question that drives our work is whether video-driven stories could be authored in such a way as to allow for more personalized or customized narrative experiences, either through direct interaction from the viewer or through considering viewer data. There are other perspectives. For example, in game development, there is the question of whether interactive stories, or rather stories, can be automatically generated in game worlds. That's not our approach. We're looking at authored stories with video content. Despite more than 30 years of research in this area, there has been very little impact upon creative practice. So therefore, we need first to consider the question, why? Should we still carry on with this research, or should we just stop it and accept that there's a no-goer? Well, here are some key reasons that I have learned through the research I've been carrying out over the past 20 years in this area. This form can only be developed through experimentation, and experimentation is expensive. Think of production costs for films. We have to produce films. They have to be interactive, therefore even more content. They have to be sustained experiences, therefore of a particular significant length. Thus, research is very much scarce, and because of lack of funding, significant funding, or is done in small increments which aren't able to push creative practice forward. Another main reason is that the logics, the recipes, the structures, the narrative structures that are used in existing successful examples are very much buried in low-level computer code. Therefore, analyzing, critiquing, exchanging experiences is significantly constrained, almost impossible. There's no language that allows communication of ideas. Another key reason for the lack of persuasive examples and creative practice in this area is that dedicated software support is limited, and dedicated software support is essential for authoring complex nonlinear narrative spaces. Otherwise, it is almost impossible to hold such narrative worlds in the author's head. So this led to creative processes being severely constrained, and they often result in simplistic or forced examples which extend traditional forms with unnecessary interactivity. Another key reason for the current insuccess of the form is that there is no dedicated technology that can support the deployment of such productions to large audiences. Therefore, experimental prototypes, which could be successful, cannot reach larger audiences and inform. So all in all, although because the form is essentially new, fundamentally new, and because there are very few meaningful examples, there is no direct demand from audiences nor from the industry. And this makes research motivation even harder. A rather bleak outlook. So should we stop? Well, if we look a bit closer, we see that all these causes appear to be strongly rooted in technology. So the question becomes whether the digital technology will ever become sufficiently mature to enable the development of this form. There is renewed enthusiasm at the moment, and here is why. The research in this area has gone through peaks and troughs. Interest is normally reignited each time a significant advancement is made in the underlying technology, but only until deployment of the results uncovers new unsurmountable technological limitations, and then we go stagnant again until there is some new significant advancement. Well, we are now on a peak. HTML5, streaming TV, 5G are technological innovations that have reinforced our confidence in this area. So, hurrah! And the key driver for the research in interactive storytelling with video, in my opinion, is object-based media. We believe that the work reported in this paper makes a significant contribution to OBM and therefore to interactive storytelling with video in general. Going back to the drawbacks highlighted earlier, the aims which drove our research have been, one, to develop a set of abstractions for representing interactive narrative logics. These would provide the tools, the concepts that would allow creatives to think about, to exchange experiences, to critique existing formats until we have a terminology, a conceptual framework for discussing and designing such experiences. I think the field will not move forward too quickly. And the other aim is to develop an authoring tool with more powerful representation support. And connecting it to my previous point, we're doing this by developing computational counterparts for the abstractions that we developed in the conceptual framework. We will validate these developments as a method through productions evaluated in the wild, but these productions themselves become an object of research and research outcomes as they would inform the potential of the form of interactive storytelling. Before presenting the summary of our research, I'd like to define object-based media, and I will take traditional film workflows as a reference. Films are made through a linear workflow, going from idea through writing, design, production, post-production, and reaching the final cut, a film that is as linear and immutable. And then this is distributed to various channels, including television. The film is watched by many, by millions, but all experience the same content. In object-based media, films are automatically assembled during viewing to provide customized narrations. Each viewer can experience a different content. Could be slightly different content, could be more significantly different. It depends on how creatives define their space of storytelling, their space of story, their narrative worlds. And I'd like to emphasize here that we are focusing on automatic processes that are applied during viewing and not just at the beginning to customize an experience that follows. In object-based media, films are made from similar ingredients to traditional film, that is video and audio clips, other media content such as text or graphics. They are now called objects. but they have to respond to an additional purpose, and that is dynamic reconfiguration. In our approach, we take post-production as a starting point of intervention and innovation and propose automatic editing. Obviously, this has implications upon the whole workflow that precedes post-production, but necessarily requires new means of distribution. We can still apply a traditional workflow up to post-production, of course amended, but distribution ought to be fundamentally different. And here is how it all works. There is an authoring process first, when the interactive narrative experiences is fully crafted in mediated content, and only when this is completed, it is followed by a subsequent process of distribution when audiences engage with the content. In authoring, creatives produce media assets or objects and, very importantly, story logics, rather than fixed films, which then at viewing time are interpreted by narrative engines to produce the customized narrations. As a foundation for this architecture, we developed a conceptual model which consists of 3 basic aggregation structures: conditional fork, selection group, and conditional layer structure, each accompanied by dedicated representational features, which are plenty actually, and they provide the richness of the model. For example, various synchronization mechanisms in layers, in conditional layers. The power of expression of our conceptual model resides in its ability to recursively combine these structures. Take this hypothetical structure, for example. The selection group that is highlighted here could contain a number of other objects. ANO, ANO stands for atomic narrative object, they're media clips, but its content also has a layered structure and 2 other selection groups. Now, if we select the layer structures, the layer structure, this in turn could have more complex objects on each layer. In this case, it has 3 layers: top layer, a fork structure, middle layer, an atomic narrative object, and bottom layer, yet another layered structure. Now, taking further a selection group on the top layer, this in turn can consist of other objects and so on and so forth. So you see that this nesting, this recursive application of the structure could lead to very, very complex and powerful and expressive narrative structures. And in turn, these generate significant and big challenges, computational challenges, in order to provide linear experiences at the time of viewing, continuous experiences at the time of viewing, as well as to test the validity of the models and to find flaws, potential flaws. We have provided operational support for these structures in our authoring tool Cutting Room, and this is another distinctive feature of our work, as conceptual models developed in the framework that we proposed are directly translatable into interactive films. Cutting Room is not a mere, but mere in inverted commas, logic authoring tool. There is support for ingestion of content, for definition of objects, for inspection of objects, annotation, preview and testing. So therefore it is a fully fledged authoring environment. We have reported in the paper the validation of Cutting Room via the production What is Love, which is a 20-minute film exhibited as an installation at the November 2018 New York Mediale Festival. What is Love recounts the story of a long-distance relationship between Amelia, a dancer, and Jack, a software developer, as facilitated by the AI platform called Z. What is very important is that the interaction adopted modes available in social media, and this departed the production from the standard yes-no plot choice. So we actually pushed the state of the art forward when it came to interaction models and modes. I hope to be able to give you a 2-minute clip from What is Love for Another channel, as my production workflow failed me at this end, and the deadline is really breathing at the back of my neck, so I have to get this video finished, but I hope to be able to give you a taster by another channel. What is Love was experienced by over 900 people at Mediale, and more than 90 took part in our survey. The results are presented in the paper. There's overall success, but interactivity was the lowest evaluated aspect of the experience. Nevertheless, positive, which in a way provides far more room for improvement than we actually wanted. But it makes us optimistic and wanting to carry on with this work. I hope this presentation was sufficient to whet your appetite to read the paper. If you have not already done so, that is, read the paper, not whet your appetite. Fire on questions now, if the format allows, or later on email. But before, allow me to present acknowledgements for the work that's been reported here. Bye-bye.